Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast on the 8th of September 2016. We are live on Google Hangouts for the very last time. Everyone say ah.
Oh. Wasn't the wrong noise.
But so when we come to the next podcast in 2 weeks' time, it will be in a slightly different place, but we will, of course, alert you in all the normal ways. With me today, I have Darian Graham-Smith.
Hello.
And Barry Collins.
Hello, Tim.
And if I fail to mention it, I'm not sure if I have. I'm Tim Danton. So let us kick off, Barry, with you, because there was exciting news last night, wasn't there?
Apparently, yes. Apparently, someone launched a phone. This was Apple, of course, with the launch of the iPhone 7, and we've moved into the brave new world of no headphone socket, as I think we talked about on the last podcast. So instead, we've got two options now for headphones. If on your iPhone, you can either buy Apple's $159 wireless units, which basically look like the current Apple headphones with the wires chopped off. Literally, they're almost identical. And or alternatively, you can buy a little adapter for the Lightning socket and plug in your 3.5 headphones as normal.
I want to stick up for Apple a bit there, actually. I think the adapter comes in the box. I think they headed off that, not brilliantly.
Yeah, apologies.
I think they for once in their lives, they missed an opportunity to charge you 15 quid for something.
Don't worry, you'll be charged for many other things.
Oh yeah, the phone itself is like 600 quid. So yeah. And doesn't it? I think it also comes with some Lightning headphones in the box, if I remember rightly. But not because, sad as I am, even though I wasn't officially on the case, we were nevertheless watching the announcement at home last night. It was long. It was like 2 hours. It was Phil Schiller. Was it Phil Schiller talking about the phone? It wasn't it? He went through 10 agonisingly long kind of screeds about different features of the phone, and headphones got a good 5 minutes.
Well, to me, I know we talked about this previously, but I don't see the benefit of this in the slightest. I mean, those headphones are hugely expensive, and they look incredibly easy to lose. I can see, easily dropping one of those, and then you're $159 down.
Yeah, did you see the cartoon that was doing the rounds on Twitter this morning about the wonderful things to wear while you're out jogging, and then of course they fall out your ears into the mud, and that's that.
Yeah. Well, they don't even look very much geared for that kind of jogging action. They seem to be, like I said, they're just like the normal earbuds. So I could easily imagine they fall out. Apparently they have a little sensor in them as well, so that if they do drop out of your ear, or you take them out of your ear, they stop playing the music automatically.
Yeah, well, that's presumably to save battery life, because they've only got a 5-hour battery life, which I think is one of the biggest kind of problems.
Well, and we've got another thing to recharge and to remember to recharge in our lives above the other 8 gadgets I already charge up overnight. So this really isn't in the least bit, attractive to me.
I'm not so negative about it as you are, because I figure, yes, obviously the adapter is another thing to lose, and that's annoying, but you can still use them. And to be honest, like I said last time, I'm in danger of just rehashing last fortnight's podcast, I know, but I've switched to Bluetooth anyway. It's a non-issue for me, and I think Apple are right in someone's got to stand up and push things forward, or we'd still be listening to records otherwise.
But it's not really a push forward. I don't think it's. The cord isn't an inconvenience. I don't see people whining endlessly about headphone cords. It's not I imagine of the top 10 items that people wanted on their phone, I'd imagine wireless headphones would be fairly low.
Because we've already got them, but yeah.
Well, yeah, precisely. If you wanted to do it, there's ways and means to do it already. So I'm not quite sure why Apple's trying to force this. And as for the adapter, it looks like an inch long, so it's going to be awkward in your pocket. And I can. I don't want to prejudge, but it looks like one of those things that would be very easy to knock out or dislodge, as you're moving along, walking to the station, that kind of thing. I think that's going to create a lot of problems.
Yeah, Lightning connectors aren't very snug, are they? They're not. No. They don't kind of grip very well.
I think the other thing to bear in mind with these, so one thing in defense of them, the fact that they automatically switch off or switch on when they sense that they're not in your ear is very good. If I think about the amount of battery that's wasted on my wireless headphones, just because I've forgotten to switch them off after a run or something, then that's a big plus. However, this morning, for example, I tried to switch to a wireless mouse. I found I was clearing out my study, found an old Bluetooth mouse, and tried to pair it up with this PC. It kind of worked, but ultimately it's just too annoying. And so I am going to, so within 10 minutes, I'd switch back to a wired connection. Because the wonderful thing about wires is that they work.
Yeah.
And they don't need batteries. And it's actually incredibly convenient. So if you're going to make a switch like this, you've really got to think about, is it really making people's lives better by doing it?
It's not just about getting rid of the wires, though, is it? It's about freeing up space and simplifying the electronics inside the thing. So now they've got, we haven't heard them yet, but they've got stereo speakers inside the phone, which are supposed to be much louder than the ones on the iPhone 6. And like I said, I haven't heard them, but I've got to say the speakers on my MacBook, my Skylake, MacBook 12-inch thing, are amazing. I'm really blown away by the volume and the sound quality, considering how small they are. So if it's possible to take your phone out and, because in the recent quite nice weather, we've been going out into the park and having to take a big Bluetooth speaker with us just to have music, not so loud to annoy everyone, just loud enough to enjoy, so it's not tinny phone speaker music. I mean, that, for example, is a benefit that you get from being able to clear out that space inside the phone chassis, I presume.
Okay, but Darian, I will take that incredibly minor advantage and put it on one side of the scale, and then I'll put all the great headphones I've got. So we're using a 3.5mm jack, and all the convenience of just, you plug in the wire and it works. The one that's got the convenience on its side far outweighs the occasional trip to the park.
I think you guys are getting much too hung up on this, and also, I mean, not only have we had this, we've had this conversation before, and we're having it again, and I mean, that's obviously like one of the big things that you've taken away from. God, how was it? How long was it? It was like 45 minutes, an hour of talking about the phone, and I mean, to me, it's a very minor thing. Fair enough, horses for courses, but I mean, I'm more interested in, for example, the home button. Well, sorry, Barry, we've totally hijacked your story.
No, go ahead. But I mean, I didn't watch the event live last night, but for me, that seems to be the only major advance on the phone itself. A home button. Well, we're happy to talk about the home button, but they seem to have replaced the actual physical home button with a touch surface, effectively. Yes.
Yeah, but it's a force touch surface, so you can now contextually kind of you can hold down harder, and it's got the so-called taptic engine, so you get more feedback from it. So it just it gives you another way of interacting with the phone. It's gradually becoming a more subtle. How would you put it? You can communicate with it better, which it's got to be a good thing.
I actually think the most interesting development was the 7 Plus with its dual cameras, and that was actually something that would possibly make me think about buying it. And out of the two, I would definitely buy the Plus rather than the plain 7.
So that's what they want you to think, but I mean, I'd need to see it, because the 6 Plus just looks ridiculous. I don't know anybody. I do not know anybody who has actually been to the shop and seen it and gone, okay, yes, that's what I want to carry around with me. But it doesn't have. Admittedly, the 6 Plus doesn't have the advantage of the 7 Plus. It doesn't have that second camera with as in case anyone listening doesn't know, the second camera has a zoom lens on it, so you get proper optical zoom with the 7 Plus, which you've never had before on an iPhone. But to me, that doesn't, it's a great thing, but it doesn't make up for the fact that you're carrying a tea tray around in your pocket.
Don't carry around a tea tray in your pocket. That's just silly. What about the other benefits they're claiming? Is that background noise I can hear from? Is someone hooting outside your window, Darren?
Oh yes, they are. I'm sorry, I live in a very short-tempered borough of North London. There's a road junction which is very narrow, and buses try to get round it. And if someone parks in the wrong place, it's a constant turmoil up here, I tell you.
Oh, that's just I feel for you. They also talk about the speed, the brightness of the display. I suppose this is why we end up talking about things that actually matter, as in the things that make it more or less usable, because slightly faster, slightly better screen.
They're just givens, aren't they? They're absolute givens. That's just the same every flipping time. So I don't really see. That's not enough. Of course, it just moves on. But all of this stuff is immeasurable. It's got to the point where, because the operating system, every time they refresh the operating system, it takes a little bit out of your phone. So you're never really sure how to compare previous generation phones to this generation. It's all a false comparison, that.
I'll tell you something actually that we haven't mentioned that was is arguably a big deal, and they kind of snuck it in at the end. I think, in fact, it wasn't even one of the 10 points. The storage has at last been upgraded.
Oh, really? No more 16 gigabytes?
That's right. The entry level one is 32 gig now.
Good God. Well done, Apple.
Yeah, I know. If they'd led with that and they'd just said, there's your 10-second presentation, we'd have been happy. Yes. And there's actually more good news as well, because they're still selling the iPhone 6S as kind of the slightly cheaper, the alternative remains on sale. And they've increased the storage on that as well. So now if you buy a 6S for, I don't know how much it is, like 450 or something like that, that will be 32 gig as well.
Yeah, well, just to point out, though, that they have made some sneaky little price upgrades at the same time. This is a story in The Independent this morning. That the 32 gig model of the iPhone 7 costs £60 more than the base model of the 6S. So your cheapest version has gone up by over 10%.
Well, we were expecting that, though, weren't we? Because, well, obviously we had that lovely experience with our £699 PC labs, where, just due to the pound falling, things have become more expensive relative to how they were, a year ago or 3 months ago.
Yeah.
So, but just to be clear, that includes the wireless headphones, does it?
No.
That price. No,
no, you don't get wireless in the box. No, you get Lightning in the box.
£159 if you want the wireless speakers, headphones rather.
Right. Okay. I'm out.
You're not going to invest. I would probably, if I was you, I would invest in this firm, actually, Barry. If they're offering you 50% for half, for 100 grand, go for it. Find the 100 grand.
Okay.
I was just to say there was some other good stuff too. I mean, it's IP67 rated now, which I think is new for the iPhone, so you don't have to panic so much. If you drop it in the toilet, as people seemingly managed to do, then it should survive, which is a big improvement.
Yeah, 2 years too late, but yes, okay.
Well, yeah, okay, but people who like iPhones did not have that before, and now they have it. It's all kind of part of the, when you're making a calculation, the next phone I buy, should it be a Samsung, should it be an Apple? It's all kind of, it all feeds into the, making the Apple a more viable contender.
Yep. Okay. And what about the watch then? Tell us about the watch, Barry.
Well, there's not much to say, is there, really, about the watch, apart from they seem to have lopped off the ridiculously expensive $10,000 gold edition. They seem to have given up on the idea of making the Apple Watch a luxury watch to compete with Tag Heuer and the other 95 luxury watchmakers. And it seems they're sort of not dragging it down market as such, but they're focusing very much on the sort of value market, in the same ballpark as the Google and Pebbles of the world, rather than trying to make it a fashion item anymore. Which, I mean, I've never seen one of the spangly gold watches in the wild. I think John Honeyball might have one, but other than that, I've never actually seen anyone buy one. So I don't think this is going to become a massive blow to the world. But it's sort of interesting that they've changed tack slightly.
Yeah, you say that they're competing more with the Pebbles of the world, and one thing I think is interesting, actually the thing that really interests me about the Watch 2 in general, the one thing that kind of makes me go, I always watch these Apple events and I think, maybe I should be on Apple after all. Then I wake up in the morning and I get on with my life. But the Apple Watch, what's it called, Edition 2 or something? That's
Series 2, isn't it?
Series 2, thank you. Is waterproof, properly waterproof, like 50 meters waterproof, take it swimming waterproof, and it should have software that it does have software that will track your swimming as well as your running and cycling and javelin or whatever it used to do, which is not only a big draw for me because no watch has got that right yet, but also it reinforces the credentials of the Apple Watch as an alternative to a regular fitness tracker rather than a fashion device.
Yeah, I think that is quite a decent feature, actually. There are smartwatches or there are fitness watches that do that. So, for example, there is I'm going to get the name wrong, but something like the Garmin Vivo Active 725.
I've got the Garmin Swim. I presume it uses a similar firmware. It's not great, to be honest. It's not very accurate. If Apple can do a better job of identifying where, it just sometimes it thinks I've done three lengths in the time I normally take to do one. It should be obvious that hasn't happened. So I'm not very convinced by what's out there at the moment.
So, and what did we think about the Well, you watched it from start to finish, Darren. Is that right?
For my sins, yes.
So, what did you think of it? Did you come away energized, thinking Apple still has its mojo, or were you a bit,
It was all very, very incremental. I mean, I think the Apple Watch is the only launch that Tim Cook's presided over where there was something really new coming out, and that was a bit of a disappointment, just because there were so many compromises, and because Android Wear had already come along and sort of, had already shown us what a watch could be and could do by that point. So the whole idea of moving on to the wrist wasn't a revolution in the way that sometimes historically Apple has really changed the game. But although it was all incremental, I mean, every step was a good welcome one. And my wife came home halfway through, and we sat watching the second half together. And she was, she really was kind of sketching out on a piece of paper, how much money can I save from doing this? When do I upgrade? She really was quite tempted by by it. It's
how much money can I save?
Can I scrimp together in order to buy one of these new things? Yeah,
not the usual conversation Apple's around Apple launches.
No, indeed. And Apple were talking as well about I don't know if you saw, they're bringing the upgrade program to the UK now, so you'll be able to pay a monthly stipend of, I don't know, I guess about 30 quid, but we don't know the prices yet. And then when the new one comes out next year, you'll automatically get it. So
really?
Yeah, but like I say, no word on the pricing yet. So it was tempting. I mean, to me personally, the most exciting thing was almost the first announcement, where they had Shigeru Miyamoto come on and show us that the first Nintendo Mario game for mobile phones is coming for the iPhone, and that I was almost like, shut up and take my money there and then. But it's probably going to come to Android as well, because he did use the word first when he said it was coming to iOS. So.
Why not Mario Kart? It just seems begging for a mobile game. I don't understand why they're so reluctant.
Well, the thing about this particular Mario game is it's very, very simple controls. I think it's just one button. I think it's just one button to jump, and everything else happens kind of in-game. Mario automatically runs forward, and the things in the world cause him to change direction and so on. So I suspect someone either at Nintendo or Apple or somewhere along the line were really uncomfortable about, it is a real problem actually, using a mobile phone to control, for fine control of games where you really need, accurate steering and so on.
I don't think it's that. I think they were being defensive. They've got huge revenues from the 3DS. Yep. That's why they want to keep people on that platform. Because also, no, it's true. And if you think about the cost of games on 3DS, for a new game, it's something like £30 or £40 typically.
Yeah, but a tiny market compared to what you could get on mobile. So,
but if you are defending, so you're sitting there in the board meeting and you're thinking, okay, we've got all this money coming in from the hardware and from the software. Do we really want to risk it?
But look what Pokemon Go did for them. It was like instantly doubled their market value overnight or something ridiculous.
And they didn't even make it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a new market. That's something different. So you're not actually threatening cannibalization of what you already have. So it's different. I'm interested. So we're hoping. I should say we're hoping that our next platform will enable us to have live questions as we do currently. But if you are listening right now, this could be your last chance to ask live questions of the assembled PC Pro brains. I reluctantly describe that as that. Can't even speak. So
irony.
Yes, if you have any questions you'd like to ask, or any thoughts on the Apple event from last night, or you want to ask us what to have for dinner or such things, then please fire away in the Q&A. Okay, let's move along to the next story, which is Darian, all about Intel.
Yes, so Intel has unveiled, last week it's unveiled, its new processor architecture. Yay! I've been with PC Pro for, nearly 10 years now, and so I've got to make this exact same announcement 10 times. Yes, so the new processor architecture is a bit faster than the old one, and otherwise not much has changed. No, that's a little bit cynical of me. Basically, it is a bit interesting, in fact, because this is the first new architecture of the post-TikTok era. As you may have heard, Skylake was the last TikTok processor, the TikTok being the thing where Intel would 1 year release a new architecture and then the next year they'd shrink the process. Now they've officially moved to a 3-year cadence, as they call it. So they do a process shrink, then they release a new architecture, then they optimize that architecture before moving on. So KB Lake, it's pronounced, is the new family of processors that's the sequel to Skylake, and it's like Skylake Plus. It's an upgraded version of Skylake. They've made some improvements to the manufacturing of it, which enables it to run, I think a little bit faster actually internally with less power leakage. So for the same wattage, Intel says that performance is, and these actually aren't bad figures. We're looking at just Intel at the moment, 12 to 19% improvement generation on generation, which is actually quite a bit higher than some of the improvements we've seen in other generational upgrades lately. So that's a good thing, but I mean, to be honest, when I first joined PC Pro and we were having things like the original Nehalem core, the first Core i7, the new processors really were opening up new avenues of performance. And even I've kind of stopped really paying a lot of attention, to be honest. Not because they're bad, but because Intel's done so well, because the processors are now so powerful that a new architecture really isn't going to make much difference to your day-to-day life, I think.
Yeah, except that one little change they've made is that they've quietly dropped the Core M branding.
I was going to talk about that, yes. I think that's a good thing, because speaking of someone who owns a Core M computer, I get a bit fed up of people saying, oh yeah, but it's not a real computer, it's underpowered, it's just a glorified iPad because it's only got a Core M. I think the Core M has rather unfairly picked up a reputation for being a very, for being like an Atom, for not being a proper...
Well, the first ones weren't they? They were pretty poor.
No, that's not fair, actually. They were much, much more powerful than Atoms. They weren't anything like as powerful as a Core i7, but the original last year MacBook, I think Sasha Muller's got one, actually. You can talk to him about it. The 2015 MacBook was the real flagship of the Core M, and it really is astonishingly good. You do forget that you are not using a full fat laptop.
No, you don't.
Well, you say that, but I don't know what you're doing. Well, I know we've talked about Lightroom in the past, but I mean, people who say it's underpowered and it's not an alternative, I have to say to them, I've been living with mine for several months now, and I really do not, I cannot fathom what it is you're doing on a day-to-day basis that keeps sticking this in your face. So I think it's very smart of Intel to actually drop the distinction, and now the Core M brand is just going to be rolled into the regular Core i3, Core i5 nomenclature, and Core M's are just going to be low-end models within those different ranges.
But so I thought the big distinction, and maybe I was wrong, was that Core M stuff has always had to be passively cooled. There was no fans. Is that still going to happen?
Not have to. I mean, it was designed to run at I think it's 4.5 watts or something. It was designed to run in passively cooled, enclosures. It was designed so that it wouldn't need any kind of fan at all. But that doesn't, Intel is not Microsoft. They don't go around saying you must only use this processor in this particular configuration.
Yes, they do.
Perhaps they do. But all right. I don't think they would stop you putting a Core M into a computer with a fan if you particularly wanted to. It just wouldn't make a lot of sense for that use case. And as as things go on, I mean, I mentioned that KB Lake is the third generation of the 14 nanometer process. So Cannon Lake is coming next year, and that'll go down to 10 nanometers. And the more optimizations, the more shrinks we get, the less cooling anything needs. The more passive cooling just becomes the norm. So I think that's a distinction that even if it is current now, was never going to last very long.
And I sort of wonder if that's half the problem, because the problem with Core M is the burst. You're right in terms of that you don't notice it over a short burst of processor activity, but because if you're doing anything intensive that's using 100% CPU the full time, like heavy editing in Lightroom, using InDesign, anything with Photoshop, which I do frequently every day.
You can't see my face right now, but I'm glowering at you, just know
that. But that's when Core M start choking back, and that's when you notice the performance starting to fall back. And I wonder how much of that is due because they can't call the processor when it starts working flat out, that it has to drop back just to protect itself?
Well, the Core M is designed with, it's very much to do with Intel's idea of, they call it hurry up and get idle, and they kind of create these, they design things to overclock really, really aggressively as soon as they get some load, so they can cut back, as quickly as possible. If you look at the Turbo Boost widget, or just open the performance monitor or whatever the equivalent is on the Mac, and just look at what's happening, it's perfectly normal. The Core M runs at its nominal speed of something like 1.6 gigahertz, and then you give it a workload and it goes up to 3.2 gigahertz for a bit, or whatever your particular model does, and then it goes back down, and that's completely standard. And it's nothing to do with it's not about danger. It's just what it's designed to do. It's designed to give a burst of a couple of seconds, which is enough to do most things.
No, it's not.
No, okay, hang on a second. But this is the even putting that aside. Even that is the point, that now it's going to be called the Core. So you're going to walk into PC World, John Lewis, and you will see in front of you a laptop that says Core i7. You do not now know if that is a genuine fast kind of full fat processor, or, as you say, one that's going to slow down when it's put under aggressive load.
Well, they all slow down under aggressive load because they all have,
but not to the same extent, Darren. As we see from our benchmarks, we know there's a really big difference, because our benchmarks, what they do is they really push these processors. In a way, it's quite an unfair challenge, because you will see a Core M laptop getting about 30, and you will see a kind of a high-end Core i7 laptop getting 60, 70, something like that. So there's a massive difference, and that's what the problem is, that I have these demands I want to use a laptop for. There's no point in me asking the person who's working there, because even though they do know a lot more now than they used to, they still won't know the subtle differences between the Core i range.
That has always been the case, though. I mean, you can buy a Core i7. You can buy a laptop with a Core i7 now that delivers a third of the performance of a desktop with a Core i7. I mean, Intel's brands have been very kind of obfuscated for quite a while,
and it's getting worse. So this is So you're kind of basically you're agreeing with me, Darren, because you're saying it was already bad and now it's getting worse. I'm glad.
I'm not sure those are exactly the words I used, but no, I mean, it is true. There are jobs for which the Core M is, a Core M class processor is a bad choice, and the same way there are jobs for which a Core i3 is a bad choice. I'm just happy that the Core M is being habilitated into the right place in the range, because it was being treated, people were thinking it was like an Atom, and it's absolutely not like an Atom. Equally, it's not like a Core i7, but it's. I would not hesitate to recommend anybody, even Barry, buy a Core M laptop, as long as I would say, are you planning to crunch enormous databases with this? Do you have an SD card full of raw images that you want to apply the same filter to 100 of them at once? If so, then you need the most powerful processor available. That's always been true. That's not about the Core M, but if you're using Chrome and Slack and all that, all the everyday stuff, go for it.
Absolutely. No, but okay. Let's go this one, because we are, I think, going to disagree. Oh no, okay, I'll stop myself from saying it. All right, so the other thing that's happened is there's been two actually big sell-offs or big buyouts of software companies or brands. Do you want to explain the McAfee one, Darian?
Yeah, well, there's not really a lot to explain as far as I'm aware. I mean, basically, Intel bought McAfee, 5 years ago? Where's my notes? Here they are.
A while ago. It did seem a weird purchase at the time.
Well, it was interesting to me because I think it sort of bespoke an Intel that was looking to be more than just a chip manufacturer. It was looking to get a foothold in, because they said that they were particularly interested in business security. This is when they'd started introducing. They'd been beefing up their what do they call it? vPro. Thank you. Yes, all those technologies. I remember I went to an IDF demonstration where they showed how, I think it was Pat Gelsinger was dressed up as a burglar and snuck onto the stage to steal a laptop. It was quite fun. It was all pantomime, and then they showed how they could remotely disable the laptop and enable its webcam to see who'd got it and where they'd taken it and so on. And that all kind of, so buying a security company made a degree of sense to me, but they haven't done anything really with it that's been particularly interesting. I believe they've been kind of doing some businessy focused sort of some products about data security, but I mean, you can still walk into a shop today and buy McAfee Internet Security, and it's still called McAfee. I think there's a little Intel logo on the front end, but Intel hasn't made it its own in any sense. And obviously, in the time that it's owned McAfee, there's been a change of leadership. Paul Ottolini has gone as CEO, replaced by Brian Krzanich, and I think they've been refocusing. They've had to refocus quite hard on what is actually a viable business for them, and what was maybe an optimistic idea from 15 years ago, mobile internet devices and so forth. So yeah, I mean, it might be the sensible thing to do to. Well, they haven't completely sold it, but they've sold a majority share. They've sold 51% of it to a company called TPG, a private equity firm. And since they've sold it for they've sold it for an amount which implies that they now think it's worth, or they've sold it for an amount which implies a value of $4.2 billion, and they bought it for $7.7 billion 5 years ago. So they've sat on it, they've lost a third of its value, and now they've sold their controlling interest in it. Well done, Intel.
It happens to us all. It does seem to be a bit of a trend of the bigger companies seem to be growing more focused. So this is actually John Burrow asked an interesting question about what our thoughts are on Micro Focus buying HPE's software division, or at least part of it, Hewlett Packard Enterprise's software division. With the comment, it seems like Meg Whitman's slimming down and the company is still in full flow. And that does seem to be the trend. These companies are saying, right, okay, we're now moving to the cloud. The cloud infrastructure is where we see our power base, is where we see us making the most profit in the future. Everything else is just kind of either managing decline or it's just not core to that. That seems to be the trend to me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and I think also, I mean, the splitting of the company into two was already, a hint in that direction. And Google had that sort of, I don't know how formal the reorganization was, but they renamed their parent company Alphabet, and sort of Google is very explicitly now one silo of that. And I think it makes sense. I mean, I don't really know anything about running a big business. I mean, I'm as is obvious from my career, but I think I think the approach of having lots of businesses which are focused is more likely to which are focused on individual things, on individual goals. It feels like it's more likely to yield yield success from the ones which are viable, and make it easier to prune and to kill off, to put it brutally, the ones which aren't viable, than the situation which I think it was Microsoft in the 90s and 2000s. I think there were ideas where there were different teams and they had different kind of political roles in the power structure of Microsoft. So Team A couldn't do something because Team B owned that segment of the user base and that sort of thing. And obviously that's not healthy. So it sounds, I mean, it's all a bit management consultancy, but it sounds sensible from a pure business point of view.
As far as HP is concerned, I'm genuinely not sure what
HPE.
HPE's.
HPE, that's their rebranded name.
Sorry,
you've got HP Inc. and you've got HPE.
Yeah, but I'm not really sure what the company stands for anymore.
Hewlett Packard.
I knew someone was going to say that, and it's just I think HP has been in this turmoil for at least a decade, probably since Carly Fiorina, which is actually more than a decade ago now. But where the identity of the company seems to shift every time it gets a new CEO, and at the moment, it seems to be having a much stronger focus on consumer, having almost ignored the consumer market, and now this sort of sell-off is more indicative of going down that route.
No, just to clarify though, HP Inc. is the one that's going down the consumer route. So it's HP Inc. that's brought out the Spectre. It's actually brought out a number of fantastic looking laptops, actually.
Yes.
So they seem to have really refound themselves almost after this split. Whereas HPE, what do they say in their statement? HPE will
just been flogged off, hasn't it, to Micro Focus?
No, it's sold off a bit of its software. Basically, it's a software division. So it's not. It's big data, enterprise security, software delivery, and test, including
autonomy, I believe.
That's right. Autonomy is back in the UK because Micro Focus is a UK-based company.
Yes, they are. So yeah, again, but you're just saying that if the future's the cloud, and there's autonomy, which was the big data company, the thing that every company needed to crunch through big data, and they're selling it off. So
yeah, they're looking at it in an infrastructure sense of things. So what powers the cloud, as opposed to after market analysis. I guess I don't know exactly.
Maybe. I thought that the whole idea of that was combine the metal with the software, make one big solution. This is the thing. I just don't know where HP stands anymore. I don't know what its strategy is. That may be as much. I'm not a particularly close follower of HP, but I've struggled to understand where the company's headed.
Yes, I have been following it more, but even I'm also struggling a bit. And they bought a high performance computing firm, so SGI, during the summer. So that kind of points to where they think they're going. So you're basically thinking very big demand computing. So that could be on cloud, so providing it as a service, or it could be, I guess, these very high end accounts like weather stations, for example. But I'm really not quite sure. I was surprised by this announcement, I must admit. A much easier question for you from Martin Finden, Barry. How about an update on that doorbell?
It ran out of battery last week, actually.
Did it?
And I stupidly ignored the warnings for a few days because I'm quite a busy man, and and then suddenly we went a couple of days and gone, nobody's locked the door for a couple of days. Even we've been very unpopular, I went outside and we realised we actually had no working doorbell. So I had to unscrew it from the wall and charge it up overnight. But other than that, it's been fine. So it's plain the user error. The one annoying thing about letting the battery run completely down actually was that it then forgot everything about itself, and I had to go through the whole setup procedure again, which was very annoying.
That's like the Palms. Do you remember the first Palms?
Yes.
Out, and you had every time they run out, and you had to go through the whole setup again. It's such a pain.
So I'll be much more mindful of battery warnings in future. And to be fair to the company, not only did the app say your battery's running out, you get sent an email saying your battery's running out. You better charge the flipping thing. So that was completely user error. But other than that, it's been fine.
Okay, good to hear. And whilst we are doing quick-fire questions, Mr. King, very formal. Hello, Mr. King. Do you have any thoughts on the changes made to YouTube? Are you guys aware of this?
Dimly.
They've changed the regs. So if you want to make revenue, all those lovely pop-up adverts, you have to. There's a whole kind of tranche of subjects you're not allowed to cover. So anything. So this is. This I may be slightly wrong, but I believe it's sexual kind of nature content. Some of it is mental health, very strangely. So if you talk about depression, I gather, I've not looked into this, but if you talk about depression, then you're not allowed to monetize it, which does seem a bit odd because if you look in the self-help store of Waterstones, a lot of it will be about mental health. So why would you not want people to be talking about that? So I just think it's slightly strange. I kind of understand why they're doing it, but I think it's going to backfire on them in all sorts of ways, and I think they will come back on that decision.
How do you think it will backfire, though? You think people are going to go to Vimeo?
No, well, I think it's so. Mr. King, it seems so formal. I wish I knew his first name. We could be friends, Mr. King. If only I knew your first name. But he's saying it's stopping news channels and blogs from covering big subjects, and that is the problem. It brings in this self-regulation. All right, there's no money to be made in talking about this topic, so I'll move to this more kind of neutral, possibly more bland, less interesting topic.
I think there is a problem here, but I'm not sure it's. I think the problem is not that YouTube is stopping people from doing this. I think YouTube is absolutely within its rights to do all this stuff. I know it sounds a very kind of Republican argument, but I think it's true. What we need a more diverse ecosystem. The problem is that YouTube has kind of partly by merit, but partly also by being part of Google. I think and partly by being the first and best known, has kind of got such a momentum, such a big center of gravity that everyone goes there. And the idea is that if you can't monetize a video on YouTube, it's impossible to monetize that video. And of course that's not true, but we do need to, I was being a bit sarcastic earlier when I said that people are going to go to Vimeo, but we do need people to go to Vimeo. We do need, we sort of need a diverse ecosystem to ensure that if company X is not doing what we want, we have an alternative.
Yes, but can I just point out, look at the history of the internet for the past 10 years. That's not what happens. People gravitate to the biggest marketplace, whether that's eBay or whether it is Upworthy or whatever it might be, that is a platform for these services. People don't naturally go where there isn't much footfall, because why would you?
Yeah, I mean there are cases of like huge quasi monopolies falling off. I mean, I think Dig used to be one of the most influential sites on the web, and managed to comprehensively blow that, and people went to Reddit, and that's it would now take another cataclysm to move them away, but it can happen.
I think the other issue with this YouTube thing is the advertising around these topics, and especially when you get to something like mental health, and I imagine there are some people targeting videos based on those topics that are questionable at the very least, and I've seen it as part of my alter ego. I also edit a Minecraft magazine, and some of the Minecraft videos you get, which are hugely popular on YouTube, and some of the advertising that goes around them for videos that are predominantly aimed at kids, you start to think, that's a little bit suspect. You wouldn't get away with that on television. So I wonder if they have a problem with people targeting their adverts at topics that you probably wouldn't want them to be, and they're taking a sort of rather cold business decision to avoid having to mediate in those arguments.
Yeah, possibly a slightly hasty one. You make a good point, actually, because as a parent myself, and I've had my children, I still have my children watching a lot of YouTube. And some of these people do actually use quite bad language. Even though theoretically the topic is, as you say, much suited to a younger audience. And in fact, swearing is one of the things I believe that YouTube is clamping down on. So from that point of view, if it does discourage swearing, then yes, do you know what? I am slightly for it as a concerned parent.
I think there's a lot also in what Barry says about YouTube just doesn't want to be responsible for fine moderation. That's always a problem. I mean, no, it could become an enormous job for a very large number of people to try to properly watch everything that goes up on YouTube and ascertain whether it's medically sound, whether it's offensive, whether it's abusive, whether it's kind of sexually suggestive or whatever. It is much safer for them and much more practical to just come up with a blanket discouragement.
And actually, I'm going to jump on your comment about one of the most influential websites, because we do have a poll happening at the moment where we're looking for votes for the most influential websites in your point of view. I've just set up a quick link. So it's pcpro.link/266podcast. If you plug that into your favorite browser, then you'll be taken to the survey. So that's pcpro.link/266podcast. So you do take part and give us your feedback, and continue to do so indeed via the questions. All right, time is against us, so let's rapidly move along to Amazon, Barry.
Yes, it appears Amazon are in the process of moving a number of their products over to the UK. Perhaps the one that certainly interests me the most is the Echo speaker, and I don't know why. I'm sort of fascinated by the Echo speaker, but this is it launched about a year ago in America, if not longer than that, and it's basically like a Siri within a self-contained speaker unit, and you can ask it to play music or check your appointments or what the weather's going to be like, and you get an instant answer. It's like an always-on voice assistant that just sits there lurking in the lounge, waiting for you to bark an order at it. That is apparently coming to the UK next week. Amazon have sent out some rather thinly veiled invites for an event, which very much hints that this is coming to us here in the UK. Don't know if either of you guys are particularly piqued by this announcement.
Well, that says it all, doesn't it?
Well, I was waiting for you, Darren, because you made a massive sigh. So
no, it was a sigh as to.
Was coming.
No, I'm sorry. That was a big sigh as to. I really want to get excited about this sort of home. I don't know what do you call it really. Home, not automation.
Home
that's
assistant.
slightly the wrong.
Home assistant.
Yeah, this home assistant stuff. But I haven't yet seen the use case that makes me go, yes, I want that in my house. And I want a lot of kind of crazy gadgets in my house, so I think that says something.
Yeah, there's nothing. Is there something burning that you want it to do, Barry?
You know, I thought you'd ask this. It's a real struggle. You know, I don't use these voice assistants much at all. But the thing I do like about the idea of the Echo, one, I like the integration. So they built it into a lot of other services like Spotify. I'm just trying to find the list on Amazon sites. But there's a lot of third-party integration. So you can get it to play your music. You can get it to control your heating if you've got one of those, Nest thermostats. I dare say it might even play my fancy doorbell. I've not looked into that. But I sort of think that these voice assistants are going to take off in that kind of background. I just need to check something very quickly, and I'm just going to say it rather than having to pick up a phone and press a button, something like that. I sort of like the idea of it, although I suspect I'm going to, and I know me, I'll end up buying one, and then it will sit there doing nothing for 24 hours a day. But it does strangely appeal to me for reasons that I can't quite put my finger on.
Well, I use my watch for exactly what you just described, and I think Home Assistant technology will probably worm its way into my home via that method. I think because I've got the Nest thermostat, so I've already got the whole Google backend kind of wired up. So I don't know if I actually can control my thermostat from my watch, but I'm sure I'm sure if it's not possible now, it will be soon. So I think I don't think I am the market for a big standalone physical device that does that. I think it'll be one of those things I wake up in the morning one day and realise that I've already got it.
Yeah.
I actually, and this is a bit of a cliche, but I think it's actually for the Alexa thing. I think it's more a kitchen device. I think it's a great kitchen device where your hands are occupied, and just
the sex and clanger, whatever they call it, clang on.
What?
Why? I wasn't going to sex. I was going to say that.
Okay, that's fine, Barry. You carry on.
I was going to say when you're cooking or you're usually busy in the kitchen, you just want to turn on Spotify or check the temperature of something, or the cooking instructions. That kind of instant answer without having to interact with a screen. I think it could work in that environment.
Yeah, no, that's true actually. Because if you've got doughy hands, let's say, I'm not imagining you making your own bread very often, Barry.
No, I again, I'm not always in the kitchen, and I suspect my partner is laughing hollowly when she hears this. But that's a use case I could definitely see for it.
I think your partner lost the power of laughter some years ago, so don't worry about that. Okay, all right, and we've also got fresh food deliveries from Amazon.
Yes, so they've sort of been edging towards this. Tim, when's the Amazon feature out for PC Pro?
Well, for subscribers, they will be getting it this week. It'll go on sale next Thursday.
Okay, so in the forthcoming issue of PC Pro, I spent a week living off Amazon entirely, so making all my purchases of Amazon, using all my digital services via Amazon's battery of video, music, and whatever services. And as part of that, I tested their new grocery service, whose name escapes me temporarily. But this
Pantry?
is the one.
Is it Pantry?
Pantry, thank you. Where you basically get next day delivery of grocery items. It's not quite the super flashy 2-hour delivery in London one. But Amazon clearly is making a big push into the grocery market. If I had shares in Tesco's and etc. right now, I would be dropping them like a stone because Amazon is definitely coming after you. It wasn't entirely successful in my experiment, I have to say, and you can read about more of that in the magazine. But you can see that Amazon is gearing up for a big challenge to supermarkets here, and this ramping up of fresh food delivery is another step towards that. Whilst we're talking about groceries, the other thing they've brought to the UK is these dash buttons, which you may have seen. Again, they've been in the US for some time, but these are literally just little buttons where the idea is that, for example, you have an Andrex button in the toilet, so place it above the toilet roll holder, and when you're running low on toilet roll, you just press the button, and next day Amazon turns up with 26 rolls of toilet roll for you, or for washing powder, or for all kinds of domestic grocery items.
A lot of options.
Yes, and this is the thing. Amazon has a sort of almost separate button for every category of product, and they're basically sponsored by brands and subsidised by the brands. So I think the button itself costs something like 25 quid, maybe a little bit more, but that's sort of subsidised from your first purchase of that brand. So I think effectively the brands pay for that button effectively advertised in your house.
It's a shame about that.
No, go on.
So I was just going to say it's a shame about that. I mean, I understand that that's maybe what makes it worth Amazon's while, but I do like the idea very much. When I first heard of it, I think we were all a bit sort of, that's a bit crazy. Why would you need that? We've all got perfectly good, phones and so on. But actually, the fact that you can put one, you can put the toilet paper one, as you say, in the toilet. You can put the washing powder one next to the dish, next to the washing machine. It makes a lot of sense that it's something that you could very easily forget because you're outside of the context of doing your shopping list at the time you realise you need it. But because it is all big brands, it's not going to be very cost effective. It's not going to be, you're not going to. I am one of those people who always likes to, look out for the special offers and so on. And that's one of the small joys of shopping for me. And I just, I wouldn't like myself if I kept on just pressing the button to pay full price for a not very efficient box of Bold or whatever it is.
The other reason it could become very costly, and I'm sure you'll find this out in due course, Darren, is that kids, when they see a button, will invariably press it. And
I know. You can set it so that it sends you an email, and you have to confirm the order from the email, so you do get a little bit of a...
How does it not have thumbprint recognition? What's going on? Okay, let's just dash on because very, very, very briefly, Darian, this has been so busy the past couple of weeks. But anyway, Sony, and it made an announcement last night.
Yep, new PlayStation. Next. No,
it's
as
well. There was.
Was there? Well, there were two PlayStations. There was the new PlayStation Slim, which is actually, it's not called the PlayStation Slim. It's just the PS4. Going forwards, the PlayStation 4 is now going to be a slimmer version, as Sony has done many times with its previous consoles. Price is cut to $259 from $299. That's RRP. And there's a new PlayStation 4 Pro, which I love the idea. This is the PlayStation 4 that professionals are going to use, to do their serious work on. Which has basically got beefed up graphics to support 4K televisions. I think this is quite interesting because historically the whole point of a console was it was a known, it was a known platform. You could make your games targeting just that one set of capabilities, and it's maybe part of the reason why console games, in my experience, which is not great, tends to continue looking good for years after the hardware actually would be considered outdated by PC standards, because you can just optimize for that one system, whereas with a PC you don't know what processor someone's got, you don't know what graphics card they've got, and there's not much incentive to make it work on 6-year-old hardware because the real dedicated enthusiasts will have more up-to-date graphics cards anyway. So I think something's been perhaps a little bit lost here in that, with that announcement. But, it's the way the industry's going, because Microsoft has already announced that Windows 10 and the Xbox One are going to be, well, kind of one and the same, that games in the future, you can buy it once and it will run on the Xbox One or on your gaming PC. So Sony's sort of, just tracking that, really.
There's also a similar splintering of the Xbox console with a sort of 4K version in the offing with a VR headset. So, I agree with you. I think it's a really bad move for the console makers. I think people will actually end up resenting that you end up having to potentially have a certain version of a console to play a game or to get the most out of a game at least. I think that could well backfire on them.
Isn't it to do with the resolution the game is played at, though? So does it matter if you have you basically partner your non-plus version of the PS4 with a full HD display, a TV, and your plus one with a 4K TV?
Yeah, they have said that. The idea is that going forward, all of the games will just still be PS4 games, and you can either put them in a regular PS4 and play them at 1080p, or put them in a Pro and play them at 4K. To be honest, I'm not at all convinced that that's going to be enough of a draw. I mean, I guess the sort of people who buy expensive consoles and like these games may well be the sort of people who have 4K TVs, but speaking as a bit of a conservative when it comes to these things, small c. I don't know anyone who's got a 4K TV. I don't have a big enough house for a 4K TV. I don't know that many people are that bothered about it. The PS4, 1080p is fine. You'd have to be sitting, 2 feet away from a 6-foot wall to detect the difference. Is it worth it?
No. Okay, good.
Good. Well, there we go. Let's settle that.
We've given that a resolution. The other, actually, do you know what? I hate to admit it, that was unintentional. We were going to finish off with a very brief vote on the Samsung Note 7,
but it blew up.
It blew up. Well, this is such a shame actually, because this happened just the day after the magazine went to press. The Samsung Note 7 story broke, that said that they were withdrawing it from sale for the moment because of the battery issues. If people don't know, there was the story that some units basically were the battery was setting fire to itself under intense use, which isn't great. But until that point, it was an amazing phone. So did you guys both look at this? Are you both aware of the Note 7's work?
Yes. I've read the forthcoming review in PC Pro anyway. I've not seen it in the flesh.
But what do we think? Is this something we would buy?
I did. Sorry, Dan.
I was just going to say the Note in general, I think, is kind of, some people. It's like I was saying earlier on about the 6 Plus. It's exactly the same market. People will, but I think that it's too big to be a mainstream device.
Yeah, I sort of agree. I did look at these devices when I was changing my phone last time, and I just felt it was just a bit too big to lug around. I think the attractiveness for me was their extended battery life, and I think this, from what I read of your review, the 7 is a decent battery life again, and that's the biggest tempter for me. But it wasn't quite enough to effectively carry a small telly around in my pocket.
Okay, so you're both. This isn't a great product. Is this what you're saying to me? So iPhone 7 or the Note 7, which would you go for?
Well, I'd go for the iPhone 7 just because it's a better size. I mean, everything else is kind of irrelevant for me. I wouldn't want to carry a Note 7 around, even if it had a 1,000,000K resolution and ran at the speed of light.
Barry? No, neither really. I think I would go back to the 6S. You said that if it's now taking a price drop and a bump in storage, because the whole wireless headphone thing doesn't interest me in the slightest, and neither does paying £700 for a phone.
The spirit of Nicole lives on, who I'm sure will be coming back to the podcast, by the way, when it finds its new home away from Google Hangouts. Okay, thank you very much to everyone for listening and for taking part. And sorry, we couldn't get through to all the questions. But I can actually give a one-word answer to two of those, if I can just delay us for a moment. So Y-Man says, will the new PS4 Pro play 4K Blu-ray? The answer is no, which is ridiculous. And Mike Bookham says, have you also heard that the YouTube app on some Sony smart TVs will soon no longer work? And the answer is yes, which is ridiculous. Yeah, but again, this could go into a longer discussion, but it's just the terrible thing that we're so used to our technology that we buy, as in things like TVs. I'm not talking about PCs necessarily, but lasting for some time. But now TVs are losing a key piece of their functionality after a few years.
I have said this right from the start on smart TVs. Do not buy a TV for the smart bits. Buy the best possible screen you can get at the cheapest possible price, and add the smarts with little boxes that are very cheap, like the Apple TV or the Roku things that I've got sitting in front of me, because the smarts will always stop being supported after about a year, and you end up with situations like YouTube not playing.
That's why I bought an Android TV rather than a generic kind of branded smart TV, because I thought Android TV would probably have more of a future when we get more updates. And so far it has, and I've been very happy with it. But already I think it's kind of starting to feel slower and slower as more updates come along and I install more apps, and I just have higher expectations of it. So yeah, you can't win.
Okay, thanks guys. I will just very briefly, for anyone who we've left confused about what is left of HP from our earlier discussion, I've got a comment from Frost and Sullivan, which is they describe themselves as a growth partnership company. Anyway.
Following estate agents.
But they make just a sentence that I think sums it up quite well, which is, since its spin-off from the larger HP conglomerate in 2015, Meg Whitman's HP have been refocusing their strategy on key enterprise technologies in storage, network technology, and services. So that's where they see their future. So it starts to get a bit subtle. What counts as that? What doesn't count? Isn't autonomy? Couldn't you put autonomy into that? But there you go. That's what one spokesman says. That is HP now. Not sure that's left anyone the wiser.
Well, thanks for that, Tim.
Yep, that's all right. That's what I'm
And on that bombshell.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. The new magazine is out next Thursday. If you're a subscriber, it should be with you this week. And if you can share your votes on pcpro.link/266podcast on the most influential websites, that'd be great. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.